A wealthy alien girl disguised herself as a beggar to test kindness. Only one human past Lyra had lived all her life surrounded by gold and luxury, on a planet far beyond Earth called Viridian. She had grown up in a palace that stretched over hills of glass and crystal, with servants who anticipated her every need before she could even think it. Every meal was prepared with care, every whim fulfilled, and every day felt almost exactly like the one before. Lyra, a young alien girl with pale violet skin and shimmering silver hair, had everything she could ever want. Yet, despite the wealth and comfort, a feeling of emptiness gnawed at her. She felt as if life had become too predictable, too controlled. She wanted to know something different, something real. She wanted to understand humans. Her fascination with humans had begun years ago. She had read about them in data archives, how they struggled, how they loved, how they showed courage and kindness even when life gave them nothing. Her advisors often dismissed humans as primitive, illogical creatures, unworthy of serious study. But Lyra had always felt otherwise. There was something compelling about the way humans lived, and she wanted to see it with her own eyes. So she made a decision that shocked everyone around her. She would leave the palace. She would leave Viridian itself. She would travel to Earth. Not as a wealthy alien girl with privileges beyond imagination, but as someone completely invisible, someone small and weak, someone who could experience life as humans did. The transformation was not difficult for her, thanks to her species' advanced technology. She could alter her appearance at will. Her silver hair turned dull brown, her shimmering eyes became ordinary green, and her clothes changed into rags that made her look like a beggar. She carried only a small satchel with a few essentials and a hidden communicator in case of emergency. For the first time, she would rely entirely on others, and that both thrilled and frightened her. When she finally arrived on Earth, the differences struck her immediately. The air smelled differently, heavier and warmer than on Viridian. The streets were crowded, chaotic, alive. Humans moved in every direction, speaking in a language she had studied for months, yet hearing it in person made it feel strange and immediate. People brushed past her as she walked, some bumping into her shoulder, others giving nothing more than a glance. The first shock was the indifference. The city was full of humans, yet she felt utterly invisible. Lyra wandered through the busy streets, observing. She noticed the small kindnesses that many ignored. A man picking up trash that wasn't his, a shopkeeper giving extra bread to a child, a woman helping an elderly person across the street. Yet these moments were rare compared to the hurried, distracted, or careless behavior of most people. Some ignored those in need entirely. Others looked at them with suspicion or annoyance. Lyra made mental notes, recording every reaction. She found a quiet alley and sat down on a cold step, tucking her ragged cloak around herself. Her stomach growled, reminding her that even the smallest comforts were not guaranteed here. On Viridian, food appeared as soon as she desired it. Here, she had to find it herself or rely on someone else's mercy. Watching the passers-by, she realized that this would be the perfect test. She would observe how humans treated someone weak and alone, someone who could not offer them anything in return. The first few hours passed slowly. Lyra tried to attract attention gently, leaning slightly forward, making small gestures that suggested need. Most people ignored her. A man in a sharp suit stepped over her feet without a glance. A group of teenagers laughed and hurried past, pointing at her rags. A woman carrying bags of groceries muttered under her breath as she walked by. Lyra's first conclusion was harsh. Humans were cruel, careless, or too busy with their own lives. She felt a pang of disappointment but reminded herself to be patient. This was only the beginning. After a while, a man stopped. He was old, with white hair and tired eyes. He crouched down beside her and offered a few coins, smiling gently. Lyra accepted them with a quiet nod and a smile, careful not to reveal too much. Her sensors recorded the warmth in his eyes, the sincerity in his gesture. It was a small act, but it mattered. Lyra realized that even in a crowd of indifference there were those who cared. She made a mental note: human kindness existed, but it was hidden, fragile, and precious. As the day wore on, Lyra grew bolder. She dropped a small bundle of belongings as a test, letting it scatter across the sidewalk. Most people passed by without noticing. Some stared, some muttered complaints, and a few stepped around it carefully. Only one young woman stopped immediately. She bent down, picking up the scattered items and placing them neatly back in the satchel. She looked up at Lyra with gentle eyes and smiled, a gesture full of warmth. Lyra's heart, or the equivalent of one in her species, skipped. There was something extraordinary about this human. The young woman, whose name Lyra would later learn was Mara, spoke softly, asking if Lyra was okay. She did not demand payment, she did not hesitate, and she did not judge. Lyra's studies had taught her that humans were capable of empathy, but seeing it in action was far more powerful than any archive could convey. Mara offered a piece of bread she had in her bag, insisting that Lyra eat before continuing her day. Lyra accepted, feeling a strange gratitude she had never experienced in her life of luxury. Over the next several hours, Lyra continued to watch Mara from a distance. She noted the little things: how Mara helped a child who had tripped, how she comforted a woman whose bag had ripped open, how she ignored rude comments from passers-by to continue doing good. Lyra's admiration grew with each act. This human was different from the rest, proving that kindness was not common, but it was powerful when it appeared. At one point, Lyra allowed herself to step into direct conversation with Mara. She asked about her life, her work, her struggles. Mara spoke honestly, without embellishment, without expectation of reward. Lyra listened, fascinated by the way humans found hope and strength even in small, difficult lives. Mara's courage was not the heroic kind she had seen in movies or read in stories. It was quiet, consistent, and persistent. She was brave because she chose to be kind when the world could have easily pushed her into selfishness. As night fell, the streets changed. The bright energy of the city dimmed, replaced by shadows and quieter, lonelier paths. Lyra felt the vulnerability of her disguise more than ever. She realized she had underestimated how exposed she would feel as a beggar in a human city. Hunger, fatigue, and the uncertainty of the night pressed in on her. Yet Mara remained nearby, insisting she accompany Lyra to a safer area, showing no fear or hesitation. Lyra realized that trust was another uniquely human quality she had never truly understood until now. For the first time, Lyra felt a strange sense of connection. She had come to Earth to study humans, but she had not expected to be affected by them. Mara's kindness had pierced through her scientific detachment, making her reflect on her own life on Viridian. What had she learned there? Luxury, yes. Power, yes. Comfort, yes. But compassion, real courage, empathy, those were things she could only observe in this imperfect, chaotic, unpredictable species called humans. By the end of the night, Lyra had made her decision. She would continue her tests, but she would pay special attention to Mara. This young human had shown what was possible when someone chose kindness over indifference, courage over fear. Lyra felt a growing excitement, a curiosity that had nothing to do with her studies and everything to do with the possibilities humans held. She realized that Earth was not just a subject for her experiment. It was a living lesson in resilience, morality, and hope. As Lyra drifted off to sleep in a safe corner of the city, hidden from the world, she reflected on the day. Humans were flawed, often selfish, often careless, but some were extraordinary. Some could surprise even an alien observer with the strength of their spirit. She wondered if Mara would continue to pass the tests she had not yet invented, whether her courage and kindness could withstand even greater challenges. One thing was certain: Lyra had never expected to feel so deeply connected to another being on her first day among humans. The experiment had begun, and already Lyra realized that this journey would change her as much as it might reveal the secrets of humanity. The city's night noises, distant traffic, barking dogs, the occasional shout, blended into a rhythm that was strange but alive. For the first time in her life, Lyra was not sheltered, not protected, not in control. And yet, for the first time, she felt something she had never felt in all her years of wealth: anticipation, wonder, and hope. The human world was teaching her lessons no Viridian palace ever could, and she could hardly wait to see what would come next. Lyra woke the next morning to the sound of the city stirring around her. The streets were already alive with movement, with humans rushing to work, school, and errands. She stretched her thin arms beneath the tattered cloak she wore and took a moment to observe. Her body ached slightly from the cold night, and her stomach reminded her again that she had no easy access to food. This was the reality she had chosen, a life of invisibility and dependence on others' kindness. She had to admit that it was harder than she had imagined, but the challenge was exactly why she had come. Lyra had come to understand humans, not in controlled simulations or theoretical readings, but in the messy, unpredictable reality of their lives. She wanted to see who would care, who would notice, and who would go about their day without a thought for those less fortunate. Most importantly, she wanted to see the human she had already begun to admire: Mara. Lyra found Mara in a small market square, helping a street vendor reorganize crates that had toppled over. Mara's hair was tied back, a simple ribbon keeping it in place, and she moved with quiet determination. Lyra watched as Mara lifted heavy boxes, placed them neatly, and smiled at the vendor, who thanked her politely. There was no hesitation, no complaint, no desire for recognition. Lyra's admiration deepened. This was the kind of human she had come to study, the rare soul who acted out of pure goodness. Lyra decided to approach, but she did so with caution. She wanted to observe Mara without influencing her actions. She dropped her satchel intentionally, letting coins and a small loaf of bread scatter across the pavement. The crowd moved around her, many stepping over the scattered items without noticing. A few glanced and shrugged. Most ignored her entirely. Lyra felt a pang of frustration, but she reminded herself that this was part of the experiment. Humans were not all kind, and that was precisely the point she wanted to study. As she had expected, Mara stopped immediately. Without hesitation, she knelt and began picking up the scattered items, her movements careful and precise. She handed each coin back to Lyra and gently placed the bread in her satchel. Lyra watched, fascinated by Mara's attention to detail and the quiet kindness she showed. No one else in the crowd had stopped. Mara was different. "Are you all right?" Mara asked, her voice soft but clear. Lyra nodded, careful not to reveal her true nature. She allowed Mara to finish helping her and then took a step back, observing how she interacted with the crowd. Mara didn't linger for attention. Instead, she returned to the vendor she had helped moments ago, continuing to assist without any expectation of reward. Lyra's mind raced. This human was extraordinary, and she needed to test her further. Throughout the day, Lyra devised small experiments to observe Mara's reactions. She pretended to trip on uneven pavement, nearly spilling the contents of her satchel. Most passers-by ignored her, some even laughing at her clumsiness. Mara, however, was already nearby. She helped Lyra steady herself, making sure nothing was lost or damaged. "You should watch your step," she said kindly. Lyra smiled quietly, impressed by the combination of patience and thoughtfulness Mara exhibited. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Lyra's tests became more challenging. She moved to a busier street, where the crowd pressed tightly around her. She acted more helplessly, pretending to struggle with a heavy bag that she could barely lift. Many humans ignored her completely, their eyes fixed on their phones or the people they were talking to. Some muttered under their breath about laziness or incompetence. Lyra's heart sank with each passing second, realizing that most humans were too absorbed in their own lives to notice someone in need. But Mara noticed. She was not far behind, weaving through the crowd to reach Lyra quickly. She lifted the bag with ease, holding it for her until Lyra could stabilize it. "Here, let me help you," she said, her tone patient and firm. There was no hesitation in her actions, no thought of inconvenience. Lyra felt a thrill of admiration. Mara's compassion was consistent, unshakable, and completely genuine. This human had passed the first tests, but Lyra was determined to see how far her kindness would go. The day continued with small, subtle challenges. Lyra would drop coins, spill water, or pretend to lose her way in confusing streets. Each time, Mara responded with care and patience, never showing frustration or anger. She offered guidance, shared food, and even insisted that Lyra rest when she seemed tired. Lyra took careful notes, recording Mara's words, actions, and even the tone of her voice. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but Mara's behavior suggested a consistency of heart that fascinated Lyra more than anything she had ever observed. By evening, the city streets had changed. The bright energy of the afternoon gave way to the quieter, slower pace of evening. Streetlights cast long shadows, and the city seemed less forgiving, more dangerous. Lyra knew that she was vulnerable in this environment. Hunger and fatigue pressed in on her, and the people passing by were less likely to offer help. This would be the true test of Mara's kindness, the human's ability to act with courage in uncertain or potentially threatening situations. Lyra decided to simulate a small danger. She activated a concealed holographic display from her satchel, creating the illusion of a shadowy figure moving quickly toward her. Only Mara would notice the movement, as it was designed to mimic a human threat that could harm someone weak and alone. Most humans passed without noticing, too busy or too self-absorbed to pay attention. Mara, however, froze for a moment and then stepped forward, shielding Lyra with her own body. Her eyes scanned the area, assessing the situation with calm determination. "Stay behind me," Mara whispered, guiding Lyra down a side alley to a safer street. Lyra was amazed at the instinctive courage Mara displayed. She had expected humans to panic, to flee, to protect only themselves. Yet Mara acted decisively, with moral clarity and bravery. Lyra felt a growing respect for this human, realizing that true strength was not measured by size or power, but by the choices one made when faced with fear. After the simulation, Mara insisted that Lyra rest and eat. They found a small cafe open late, and Mara bought 2 sandwiches, offering one to Lyra. "You need energy if you're going to be out here," she said simply. Lyra accepted, tasting human food for the first time. It was simple, nourishing, and somehow comforting. Mara ate quietly, making conversation about ordinary things, her family, her work, her favorite books. Lyra listened intently, fascinated by the way humans found joy in small, everyday experiences. Throughout the evening, Lyra reflected on her findings. The majority of humans had ignored her, some had been rude, and a few had helped in small, hesitant ways. But Mara had gone beyond that. She had demonstrated courage, empathy, patience, and intelligence. She acted without expectation of reward, without desire for recognition, simply because it was the right thing to do. Lyra realized that this human was exceptional, a rare example of the potential for greatness that humans possessed. As they walked back through the quiet streets, Lyra remained in her disguise, careful not to reveal her true nature. She wanted to continue observing Mara without influencing her actions with her presence as an alien. Yet despite her efforts, she felt a strange warmth in her chest, a connection that she had not anticipated. Mara's kindness was not just impressive, it was inspiring. Lyra began to understand why humans were capable of such extraordinary acts despite their limitations. Their strength came not from technology or physical power, but from choice, morality, and compassion. By the time they reached a safer area near the city park, Lyra knew that her experiment had taken on a new dimension. She was no longer merely observing humanity from a detached perspective. She was learning from it, and she was beginning to see the potential for humans to change not only themselves, but even the perceptions of other species. Mara's actions had proven that kindness could be a force of influence, capable of shaping the world in ways that brute strength or wealth could not. Lyra thanked Mara quietly, offering words of genuine appreciation. Mara smiled, brushing it off as if it were nothing, and encouraged Lyra to rest for the night. Lyra found a small corner to sleep, hidden but safe, reflecting on everything she had witnessed. Humans were complex, unpredictable, and often flawed. But in Mara, she had found an example of what was possible when someone chose to act with integrity, courage, and compassion. As she drifted off to sleep, Lyra's mind buzzed with anticipation. Tomorrow, she would continue her tests, pushing the boundaries of Mara's kindness and resilience. She wanted to see if this human could maintain her integrity under even greater pressure, in more challenging situations, and in moments where fear might tempt her to act otherwise. Lyra knew that this journey would not only reveal the truth about humanity, but also about herself. For the first time, Lyra felt a sense of purpose beyond wealth, comfort, or curiosity. She had come to Earth seeking understanding, but she had discovered something unexpected: admiration, respect, and perhaps even hope. Humanity was not perfect, but it was capable of moments that could shine brighter than anything in her palace on Viridian. And in Mara, she had found a human who embodied that brilliance, a light in the chaos of the world that could not be ignored. The night wrapped the city in quiet darkness, but Lyra's thoughts were alive with possibility. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new lessons. She could not predict the outcome, and that uncertainty thrilled her. Humanity was unpredictable, but in its unpredictability lay its power. And Mara, with her quiet courage and unwavering kindness, was already proving that humans were capable of greatness that even the most advanced aliens could not fully understand. The next morning, Lyra awoke with a sense of anticipation. The city was waking slowly under the pale light of dawn, and she could hear the faint hum of traffic and early footsteps. Today, she decided, would be different. Her tests so far had been small, subtle acts of kindness, but now she wanted to see the depth of Mara's compassion. She wanted to observe how a human would respond when faced not only with need, but also with challenge, fear, and moral choice. Lyra followed Mara from a distance as the young woman went about her routine. Mara walked briskly to the small community library where she worked part-time. Along the way, she noticed an elderly man struggling to carry a heavy box of books. Most humans hurried past, but Mara immediately stepped forward to help. She lifted the box carefully, balancing it with ease and carrying it inside the library. Lyra watched, impressed once again by the human's instinctive generosity. It was not enough to help once. Mara seemed to make kindness a habit, a natural response rather than a rare act. After her shift at the library, Mara walked through a nearby park. Lyra had prepared her next challenge. She had carefully arranged for a loose dog to appear near the path, barking and running unpredictably. The animal was not dangerous, but its sudden movements could startle or scare a person. Most humans would avoid the dog, crossing the street or stepping aside. Mara, however, did not hesitate. She crouched down and calmly spoke to the dog, soothing it with gentle words and motion. The dog's barking subsided, and it followed Mara obediently. Lyra was fascinated. Mara's calm and confident response showed that she could maintain composure even in situations that might unsettle others. Lyra decided it was time to escalate the challenge. She wanted to observe how Mara would act when confronted with danger that seemed real, even if she could manipulate it safely. Using a small holographic projector hidden in her satchel, Lyra created the illusion of a dark figure approaching from the park shadows. The figure moved quickly, appearing as if it intended to intimidate or harm her. Lyra watched closely from a distance, noting the reactions of others around her. Many humans ignored the figure entirely, while a few hurried away. Mara, however, froze briefly, assessing the situation, and then moved toward Lyra. "Stay close to me," Mara whispered, her eyes scanning the area. She positioned herself between Lyra and the holographic threat, guiding Lyra to a safer path through the park. Every step Mara took was careful, deliberate and protective. Lyra marveled at the courage she displayed. She had expected humans to panic, to flee, or to act out of self-interest, but Mara's response was calm and morally grounded. Mara did not hesitate to place herself in a position of potential risk to ensure another's safety. After the immediate danger had passed, Mara turned to Lyra with a quiet smile. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice steady but full of concern. Lyra nodded, hiding the excitement she felt. Every human she had observed so far had shown kindness, but Mara's actions went beyond that. She displayed intelligence, courage, and empathy in ways that few humans were capable of. Lyra realized that this young woman was extraordinary, not just in her behavior but in her understanding of moral responsibility. As the day continued, Lyra devised further tests. She created small moral dilemmas for Mara, observing how she would respond. In one instance, Lyra left a small purse on a park bench, clearly lost. Many humans walked by, noticing it but ignoring it, assuming it did not concern them. Mara, however, picked up the purse, opened it carefully, and found identification inside. She looked around, considering her options, and then decided to take it to the nearby police station, ensuring it would be returned to its owner. Lyra noted the thoughtfulness in Mara's decision-making. She could have kept the purse or left it, but she chose the ethical path. Later, Lyra staged another scenario to test Mara's perseverance and patience. She appeared to struggle with a heavy load of groceries, spilling items across a crowded street. People moved around her, some laughing, some sighing in annoyance, others simply walking by. Mara stopped immediately, helping to gather the scattered items and ensuring that none were damaged. She even offered to carry some of the groceries for Lyra, demonstrating practical kindness combined with empathy. Lyra was deeply impressed by the consistency and sincerity of Mara's behavior. The most significant test, however, was yet to come. Lyra had designed a scenario that combined physical challenge, fear, and moral choice. She created the illusion of a dangerous alley where a holographic threat lurked. This time, the danger was more intense, appearing to block the only path to safety. Most humans, if confronted with such a situation, would likely avoid it entirely, prioritizing their own safety. Mara, however, hesitated for only a moment before assessing the situation. She did not panic. She did not flee. Instead, she looked at Lyra and spoke with quiet confidence. "Follow me," Mara said, leading the way through the simulated danger. She guided Lyra carefully, using her wits to avoid the projected threat. At one point, she created a diversion, drawing the holographic figure away while ensuring Lyra remained safe. Lyra's admiration deepened. This was not simply an act of kindness. It was a demonstration of strategic thinking, courage under pressure, and a commitment to moral duty. Mara had passed every test so far, but this moment revealed the full scope of her character. After navigating the simulated danger, Mara led Lyra to a quiet rooftop overlooking the city. The sun was setting, casting long shadows and bathing the streets below in warm, golden light. Mara leaned against the railing, breathing deeply, while Lyra remained in the shadows, observing. She realized that humans, despite their physical limitations, possessed an inner strength that could rival even the most advanced alien species. Mara's courage and compassion were not born of strength or privilege, but of choice. Lyra decided to interact more directly. She revealed a small portion of her alien abilities, creating a gentle, harmless glow around her hands. Mara's eyes widened in surprise, but she did not recoil in fear. Instead, she studied the glow with curiosity and interest, asking questions rather than jumping to conclusions. Lyra realized that Mara's open-mindedness was as remarkable as her kindness. She was willing to confront the unknown, to engage with it thoughtfully, and to act with integrity even when faced with something extraordinary. Throughout the evening, Lyra continued to observe and interact with Mara. She created small challenges, each designed to test a different aspect of human behavior: patience, empathy, courage, and ethical reasoning. Mara responded to each with grace and thoughtfulness, never seeking reward or recognition. She acted because it was right, because it aligned with her values, and because she saw the importance of helping others. Lyra took careful notes, recording every word, action, and decision. She realized that Mara was not just kind, she was exemplary. By nightfall, Lyra and Mara had formed an unspoken bond. Lyra remained in disguise, careful not to reveal her full identity, yet she felt a growing sense of connection. Mara's actions had demonstrated a level of moral and emotional intelligence that Lyra had not anticipated. It was one thing to observe kindness. It was another to witness it consistently, under pressure, and in the face of potential danger. Mara had proven that humans were capable of extraordinary acts, and that moral courage could be as powerful as any physical or technological advantage. As they walked through the quieter streets, Lyra reflected on the lessons she had learned. Humans were unpredictable, often flawed, and easily distracted. Yet, in moments of choice, they could display remarkable strength. Mara's behavior showed that true power lay not in dominance or wealth, but in the ability to act with compassion, courage, and integrity. Lyra felt a deep admiration for this human, realizing that Mara's example could inspire others, both human and alien alike. They reached a small, safe corner where Lyra would spend the night. Mara offered words of encouragement, reminding Lyra to rest and take care of herself. Lyra nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude and respect. For the first time, she understood that humans were not merely subjects for observation. They were teachers, guides, and sources of inspiration. Mara had shown her the depth of human potential, and Lyra knew that the journey ahead would reveal even more. As Lyra settled into her hiding place, she reviewed the day's events in her mind. Mara had passed every test with grace and intelligence, demonstrating that humans could rise to extraordinary challenges when guided by morality and courage. Lyra realized that this young human was more than a subject for study. She was a symbol of hope, a reminder that compassion and bravery could exist even in a chaotic, indifferent world. For the first time, Lyra felt a sense of purpose beyond curiosity and observation. She had come to Earth to understand humans, but she had discovered something deeper: admiration, respect, and the possibility of true connection. Mara's actions had shown that humans could shine brightly, even in the most difficult circumstances, and that their strength lay not in power or technology, but in their choices, their empathy, and their courage. The city's night sounds surrounded her: the distant hum of traffic, the occasional bark of a dog, the faint voices of humans in the streets. Lyra closed her eyes, thinking of Mara, and felt a quiet excitement for what tomorrow might bring. She knew that the tests were not over, that the challenges would become more complex, and that Mara's character would continue to be revealed in new and unexpected ways. Yet she felt confident that this human, with her unwavering kindness and courage, would continue to shine. Lyra drifted into a light sleep, her mind alive with anticipation. Tomorrow, she would observe more, test more, and perhaps understand even more about what made humans remarkable. Mara had already passed the first level of her experiment, but Lyra knew that the journey was far from over. Humanity, she realized, was more than what any data archive could convey. It was alive, unpredictable, and full of potential. And Mara, with her quiet strength and moral clarity, was the perfect example of that potential. The next morning, Lyra awoke before sunrise, the city streets still quiet and almost empty. Today she felt a shift in her experiment. Mara had proven herself extraordinary, but Lyra wanted to see the depth of her resilience, courage, and moral clarity. She had prepared a new set of challenges, designed to test Mara not only physically, but emotionally. Lyra understood that true character showed itself when a person was confronted with unexpected responsibility and difficult choices. Mara appeared a little later than usual, carrying her simple bag and humming softly as she walked. Lyra followed from a distance, careful not to disturb her routine too early. Mara's first stop was the local shelter, where she volunteered part-time. Lyra watched as Mara greeted the children and adults there with warmth and respect. She helped organize donated items, served food, and comforted those who looked frightened or sad. Lyra realized that Mara's kindness was not limited to strangers she encountered on the streets. It was consistent across all situations and toward everyone she met. Lyra decided it was time to make the challenges more personal. She disguised a small incident to appear as if Mara had dropped a folder containing sensitive papers. Many humans rushed past or ignored it entirely, but Mara immediately stopped, retrieved the folder carefully, and made sure it returned safely to its owner. This act seemed small, but Lyra recognized the attention to detail and sense of responsibility it required. Mara cared not only for people, but also for the integrity of their work and lives. Later, as Mara walked through the city park on her way home, Lyra activated another holographic simulation. This time, she created a scenario where a group of shadowy figures appeared to be harassing a stranger. Most humans would either avoid the situation or react with fear, but Mara stepped forward immediately, using her voice and presence to diffuse the situation. Lyra observed as Mara's intelligence shone. She did not attack or scare the figures, but calmly redirected them, protecting the stranger while keeping herself safe. Lyra was amazed. Every test she designed seemed to show that Mara was more than capable of handling danger, moral challenges, and emotional stress. She moved with grace, patience, and courage, and her actions were always guided by thoughtfulness rather than instinct alone. Lyra realized that humans had a unique quality, the ability to make conscious choices that could impact others in profound ways. Mara was proof of this potential. By mid-afternoon, Lyra decided to raise the stakes even higher. She created the illusion of a dangerous situation near the city's riverbank. A simulated fire had broken out in a small building, and holographic smoke and flames filled the alleyways. People ran past, screaming and panicking, while others avoided the scene entirely. Lyra watched Mara closely, noting her reaction. Mara did not freeze. Instead, she carefully assessed the situation, looking for anyone trapped or in need of help. Mara noticed a figure, a child caught near the entrance of the building, terrified and frozen in place. Most humans would have been too afraid to intervene, but Mara immediately acted. She moved quickly, calming the child with gentle words and guided them out of the simulated danger. Her decision-making was precise and calm, even under pressure. Lyra realized that Mara's courage was rooted not in fearlessness, but in empathy and intelligence. She acted because she understood the value of life and the importance of moral responsibility. After the child was safe, Mara turned back to the building and noticed that other people were still in danger. She instructed a few bystanders calmly, helping them escape while making sure no one panicked. Lyra watched in awe as Mara's leadership emerged naturally. She did not seek recognition, she did not hesitate, and she did not act recklessly. Every decision was deliberate, every action measured. Lyra realized that humans could inspire others through courage and kindness, and Mara was the perfect example of this. Once the simulation ended, Mara led the child and bystanders to safety, making sure everyone was accounted for. She offered comfort and reassurance, even when the danger was gone. Lyra realized that true heroism did not always involve battles or grand gestures. Sometimes it was quiet, steady, and filled with empathy. Mara had passed yet another test, showing that humans could combine intelligence, morality, and compassion to achieve extraordinary results. By evening, Lyra felt that the time had come for a more personal interaction. She decided to reveal a small portion of her true self, not her full identity, but enough to hint that she was not an ordinary human. Lyra activated a gentle glow around her hands and allowed her unusual features to shimmer faintly beneath her disguise. Mara noticed immediately, her curiosity shining through her calm demeanor. She did not scream, recoil, or panic. Instead, she asked questions, seeking to understand the phenomenon with reason and thoughtfulness. Lyra was impressed. Mara's reaction demonstrated a level of open-mindedness and critical thinking that went beyond simple kindness. She was willing to confront the unknown, to engage with it thoughtfully, and to act with integrity even when faced with something extraordinary. Mara's behavior reaffirmed Lyra's growing admiration for humans. It was not just strength, courage, or intelligence that made humans remarkable. It was the combination of these traits with moral clarity and empathy. As night fell, Lyra and Mara walked through the quieter streets of the city. Lyra remained in her disguise, careful not to reveal too much, but she allowed Mara to sense that something was unusual. Mara's attention to detail and perception were sharp, and Lyra knew she would eventually uncover the truth. For now, however, the young human continued to act naturally, demonstrating patience, understanding, and kindness in every interaction. They reached a small rooftop overlooking the city skyline. The lights below twinkled like stars, and the wind carried the faint sounds of life from the streets. Lyra finally allowed herself to speak more freely, explaining some of the lessons she had learned from observing Mara. She praised the human for her courage, intelligence, and moral clarity, noting how rare such qualities were. Mara listened carefully, absorbing the words without arrogance or dismissal. "I've never thought about my actions that way," Mara said quietly. "I just try to do what feels right. I guess I don't really think about how rare it is." Her voice was humble, yet full of conviction. Lyra realized that Mara's humility was part of her greatness. She acted not for reward, not for recognition, but because it aligned with her values. This made her even more extraordinary in Lyra's eyes. Lyra reflected on her own life on Viridian. Wealth, power, and privilege had never required courage or moral choice. Decisions were often dictated by protocol or expectation. Observing Mara had shown her that humans were capable of a type of greatness that her society could not fully understand. It was not enough to be strong or intelligent. True strength was a combination of mind, heart, and moral clarity, a lesson Mara was teaching her every day. The night passed quietly, but Lyra remained awake long after Mara had left. She thought about the challenges of the day and the extraordinary resilience the young human had displayed. Lyra realized that her experiments were no longer purely observational. Mara had become a guide, a teacher, and an inspiration. Lyra understood that the human world was alive with lessons, and that moral courage could shine as brightly as any alien technology or advanced civilization. By the early morning, Lyra had made a decision. Tomorrow, she would create the final set of challenges for this stage of the experiment. They would test Mara's endurance, intelligence, and courage under the highest pressure she had designed so far. Lyra was confident that Mara would continue to shine, but she was also aware that the challenges would push both of them to new limits. She felt anticipation, excitement, and a sense of responsibility. This experiment was no longer about recording data. It was about understanding, connection, and the potential for extraordinary human achievement. As dawn approached, Lyra finally rested. The city below began to stir, unaware of the silent observations taking place. Lyra knew that Mara's journey of kindness, courage, and intelligence was far from over. Tomorrow would bring new trials, new lessons, and new opportunities for humans to prove what made them remarkable. Lyra closed her eyes, confident that the young human had the strength, intelligence, and moral clarity to meet every challenge, and perhaps even surpass the expectations of an alien observer. The city lights dimmed in the early morning haze, but Lyra's thoughts were bright with possibility. Mara had passed every test so far, showing that humans could combine empathy, intelligence, and courage to overcome even the most difficult challenges. Lyra realized that the potential of humanity was extraordinary, and that the lessons she was learning from Mara could change her understanding of the universe itself. For the first time, Lyra felt a deep sense of purpose. She had come to Earth seeking knowledge, but she had found inspiration. Mara was not just an ordinary human. She was proof that humans could rise to greatness through moral courage, empathy, and intelligence. Lyra knew that this journey would continue, that challenges would grow, and that Mara's character would continue to be revealed in ways both surprising and inspiring. As the first light of morning touched the city streets, Lyra allowed herself a quiet smile. Humanity, she realized, was more than a subject of study. It was a source of hope, wonder, and inspiration. Mara had shown her what was possible when someone chose kindness, courage, and integrity above all else. And as Lyra prepared for the next stage of her experiment, she knew that this human had the strength to meet any challenge, and the potential to teach lessons that would echo far beyond the city streets.